Welcome, Mark Stabina here, keynote speaker, leadership coach, facilitator, and founder of Winning EQ, where you can find all of those services and more. And this is LinkedIn Live number 6 in my work enjoyment series. It's been a fantastic series. I'm here to talk all things enjoying work. And I've had many experts to come in and lend their experiences and wisdom about how to create that in the workplace, the correlation between enjoying our work and performance. When we think about work enjoyment, there's a lot of elements that go into that, not just having fun. Challenge. We like being challenged. Relationships. We've had some of our past guests talk about the importance of building trusting relationships, but how enjoyable that can be, how imperative it is to build trust with our teammates and the leaders. And if we're a leader as well, developing trust and accomplishments. Progression, that mindset of growth is enjoyable when we actually are challenged enough so that we learn. And then on the other side of that learning, we feel like we've grown, and that's an enjoyable experience. Some companies do it effectively. Training and development is a huge part of the corporate culture, essential, some might say. And there are other companies that aren't doing it quite so well. And there's one company in particular called Electives, who are here to support other organizations with creating learning experiences that are impactful, that are enjoyable, that are memorable. And I'm lucky enough to be one of their teachers facilitating workshops around leadership topics. And our special guest today she's been there from the start, pretty much day zero, I think. Maggie is one of the OGs, Maggie Goldstein. She's the VP of Learning Experiences at Electives. I'll let her tell us more about that. So let's bring her in all the way from Aspen, Colorado. Maggie Goldstein. There she is.
I'm so excited.
So am I. We've had a couple of these types of discussions, not live in front of a camera, but certainly behind the scenes as one of Electives as teachers. You and your team constantly challenge me, help me improve in creating those experiences. Let's talk about that. But first, I want to get from you what enjoyment means to you and how you create enjoyment in your work life.
Totally. Well, when you first came to me about this conversation, I was a little put off by the term enjoyment. I didn't want it to seem, flippant or too light, just because I think when I think about enjoying work, there are so many kind of heavy elements that have to kind of come together to really create a enjoyable space to spend most of our days. So obviously there are the big ones, like, is this work that I care about? Do I align with the mission and vision? Do I actually believe in the work that we're doing and what we're trying to accomplish? I think about, you see so many studies around the impact that leadership and our bosses make. And so just having a boss that you feel positive interacting with, who supports you, who understands you, who you can talk to openly, is obviously a huge indicator of kind of enjoyment and longevity at an organization. But then there's other things that I think we feel day to day, like our peer connection and, are we growing? Is this a place where we can actually have an impact and feel like we're, helping the company hit the bottom line? So those are kind of the big ones that I think about when I reflect on my enjoyment in my current role, and just when we're supporting companies to make sure that their employees, teams, leaders, feel good at the organization.
You're so right about all the different elements. And thank you for that, because you gave that personal account and experience of how you enjoy work. I want to spend a little bit more time on that and around Electives and the culture that you have. And it makes total sense that it's a company that helps other companies create a culture of enjoyable learning, let's just say. So you obviously have to live it yourself within your own team. Tell us a little bit more, especially about Jason's been on a LinkedIn Live, one of the co-founders, why you were so compelled and wanted to work for them and how long you've been there. Tell us more about that experience.
Yeah, I've been with Electives since the beginning, coming up on 5 years. Was the first employee that Jason and Crecor brought on, which has been so fun to see us grow in a ton of ways. But I will just come off right away and admit, like, it is hard even for us to really put aside substantial time for learning and coming together. Like, it often feels, and this is something we hear from points of contact, that there's not enough time. Like, we all have, prioritize a client conversation before we prioritize ourselves. But what is lucky about Electives is because we are constantly vetting new instructors and holding classes for other companies and having our membership program roll, and we're testing our own AI simulations. Like, learning is kind of inherently a part of our day to day. So I think we are lucky in that we almost don't have to put aside that time. But yeah, we talk about and think about growth and improving performance and connecting and alignment all the time. And I think that does keep us honest. And drinking our own Kool-Aid is like a term we throw around, but keeps us honest in making sure that our own employees are engaged and growing and having real conversations and connection that are like challenging and meaningful to the work that we do every day.
Meaningful, there's a key word as well. Talk a little bit more about that, because you mentioned it's important for any culture, especially to be an enjoyable culture, for someone to enjoy their work and their place in a company, that they believe in the mission, the vision. So tell us a little bit more about Electives' mission and vision, and why you feel aligned to that.
Yeah. I've been in education since like I had a job. So I fundamentally really believe that learning and quality learning is kind of like a human right in a sense. Like, I believe all kids should have access to good learning, but also adults in their workplace. And that expert-led, challenging, rigorous content should not just be set aside for executives who get incredible executive coaches, but that all levels of the company not only deserve, but also that it's like better for the performance and bottom line for everyone to be engaged and sort of maximizing their potential. So at Electives, we just believe that learning at work, for lack of a better word, should be incredible, that you should be able to engage in conversations throughout the workday where you go home at night and you talk about it at the dinner table, and you actually feel something and you feel inspired and you're challenged and you have to actually think. I mean, we know this, like, a lot of learning at work is about checking a box. And so we kind of believe the opposite. Like, we believe that people coming together and having to actually use their brains, apply, have conversations, ask questions. Like, we know that not only is this great for the brain and is pleasurable and enjoyable, but like, we know that this creates more engaged, invested employees who stay at companies longer and who perform better. So that's kind of our charge, and our mission is finding instructors who are really experts in their content and really good at what they do. And it is a unique skill set to be able to bring people together on Zoom, keep them engaged, really like force them to respond, act, and ask questions, because it's very easy to hide on Zoom. But yeah, that is our mission at Electives and what we try to do many times a day, every single day.
I want to just double click on that for a second. The Zoom, the virtual meetings, Electives started around 2020. It was the pandemic, wasn't it? I believe when I first met with Jason and brought me on as a teacher, it's when the world went remote.
Yeah.
So this learning and development, it changed dramatically from in person, whether it be internal and offsites, and speakers coming in, motivational speakers, coaches, to deliver these keynotes or team building exercises. All of a sudden now we're all on Zoom. and trying to figure out, or Teams and different platforms, which were virtual meetings. And I feel like this is where Electives really stepped up and said, okay, we're going to revolutionize, first stay ahead of the game, but teach these facilitators and coaches that are used to being in person. Now we get to deliver virtually. Tell us a little bit about some of the challenges of that and where Electives help bridge those gaps for teachers and the audience as well.
Totally. I mean, I think big picture, like we know that, and our learning team talks about this right now a lot, but there is a social recession going on, and people feel lonely, and connection is probably more important than ever. And we are, a lot of us are connecting virtually, whether it's, kind of in a hybrid sense or fully remote. And there are ways to still feel like genuine connection to other humans online. I don't want to replace the in-person experience. Mark, so everyone knows, does great like in-person keynotes that are incredibly powerful. And a lot of our instructors do too. And that's something that we still lean into and believe in is providing in-person facilitation when it's appropriate and an option. But yeah, I think, there are still ways to hold people accountable on Zoom. I think there is almost this culture of like having it out and being able to be off camera, or just this kind of understanding like everyone's going to be multitasking. It's just what it is. But when there is engaging content and accountability and questions that are being asked and a culture where people are expected to respond, they will. And I think the bottom line is like, we believe that people want to be engaged. Like I do really think that people want to grow, and people want to get better. And when they're challenged, and when there's an element, Mark, you and I talked about this, when there's an element of drama or like disagreement or conflict, like that's a good thing. Like what, opening a space where people can actually embrace disagreement and push each other to grapple with concepts, or, to get aligned, like that's interesting. That's good stuff. And people will engage with that. So there are obviously tips and tricks where our instructors will kind of like trick everyone to getting on camera through some like icebreaker, or, manipulating on camera, off camera. I think wait time is super important. When you ask a question, just give a moment of silence and like let people. So there are a lot of things. And then there's so many just technology on Zoom through annotation, polls, chat, breakout rooms that can be incredibly powerful in creating even more engagement than you can sometimes have in person. So obviously those are all things that we coach our instructors on and try to provide skills, but that we really expect you to have like a top-notch Zoom experience when you're in an elective session. Otherwise, not as impactful as it could be.
Maggie, I'm so glad that you pinpointed that challenge as a way to engage, because it's a natural tendency, and especially when you're dealing with a lot of people who are introverts.
Totally.
That's part of the challenge as an instructor, to not alienate them, not make somebody feel so uncomfortable. I mean, we've talked about this post one of my lessons, one of my electives. I forget what the topic was, but there was a good amount of people, about 90 people. And my usual thing, especially with other companies whose culture is one of cameras on, lean into the challenge. It's so satisfying, engaging. They get it. Other companies go more the other way of like, hey, we don't want to make people feel uncomfortable. We want to give them the option. We want to show that we're supporting all personalities. And so I said, all right, we're going into breakout rooms. Already half the audience was off camera.
Right.
From 90 people, when I brought them back into the main room after a 5-minute breakout room, there were 40 people. So I was like, okay, that was more about that culture and
Yes.
good information and feedback for me. And like you said, rather than just being like, oh, okay, I'll stop doing breakout rooms from now on, it's finding a way to, yes, the client wants the experience they want and you customize it for them and their needs, but gently encouraging is the best way I can put it, doing situations like breakout rooms, getting a little bit uncomfortable so that you get the maximum engagement. And that is part of this topic. It's so important. Enjoying our work means we get to be challenged. We challenge ourselves.
Totally.
Our leaders challenge us. We create an environment, a culture of challenge, because when you get a little uncomfortable, on the other side of that challenge, you deepen relationships. You feel a better sense of growth yourself. And that's what I put under the banner of enjoyment. You're so right at the start. Enjoyment means so many things. And I try and define enjoyment in my respect, and challenge is a big part of that, and relationships. Tell us a little bit more while we're talking about, because I think it's an important topic, this culture of, and you can see the culture of the company straight away that you're working with when everybody shows up and no one's on camera versus everybody's on camera.
Yes.
That comes from leadership. What
Yes.
are some of those tricks? Just give us a couple of how to gently encourage, and what teachers have you seen that have done it really well, and maybe something that sticks out in your mind where it started off with low engagement, low visibility, cameras off, and then they were able to turn that around to people engaging, talking, cameras on.
I mean, I almost want to connect that more to something you were kind of talking about earlier on in this piece, which is company culture. You can tell right away.
Mm-hmm.
And leaders are so critical for that. Like, we also, when we're, speaking with a people leader, you can tell, like, does the leadership team believe in a growth mindset? Like, does the leadership believe that people can grow and get better, or that we're kind of in a stagnant place and there's a culture of kind of firing and hiring? And is there just a practice or a muscle of people coming together to be vulnerable, to grow, to learn, to challenge each other? And so I think it is on leadership to ask themselves, like, is this something that I have prioritized? And it's such a sort of dictator or driver of culture. Like, culture exists whether you are clear about what you're trying to achieve or not, right? Like, a culture is going to be created no matter what. But when you bring people together and you're intentional about how you want that space to feel, what you want people to be talking about, then you're actually shaping culture. And you believe that culture can be manipulated, is definitely the wrong word, but like, can be shaped and can be, driven towards a better place. And in terms of like getting people to be on camera, I mean, again, tons of like small moves that instructors can make. But when leaders come to sessions, or even like influencers or companies, this doesn't have to be the CEO. These can be, mid-level managers, or really like high performing ICs, senior ICs, so on and so forth. When folks like step up in a session and set the tone, others will follow, right? Like, culture leaders do have an impact. Senior level leaders do have an impact. We had a session with Therabody many years ago. I don't know why this stands out in my mind. And the founder of Therabody, who was like a kind of motorcycle, like his story of coming up with the idea of Therabody was that he put a cat toy on the end of a like a power tool after he had a motorcycle accident, and he was trying to like fix his muscle soreness. And that's how he came up with the Theragun. But like, he was in a session and like just kind of like jumping in. And then our point of contact messaged me on the side and said, that's our CEO. And I was so surprised. Like, I just was so, it made so much sense once she told me that, because there was just like an energy, because people were showing up and following his lead. And so I think leaders like get so caught up in the day-to-day revenue generating activities, and it
Mhm.
takes a forward thinking, mindful leader to stop and reflect and say like, bringing people together to connect and discuss and grapple, whether that be super tactical or more inspiring session about a company's values or mindsets, like that is a valuable use of time. And that
Mhm.
people growing does impact the business in a significant way. And so, yeah, I think like that leadership presence is one small thing that I think can make a huge difference.
You're going to laugh, Maggie. I believe that was me that was teaching that class.
No.
Yes, because I remember him coming in and asking most of the questions. It was great. And you're right, everybody just sort of perks up and
Yeah.
they don't they want to they want to
Yes.
show up just as the boss is showing up, or at least they want to be seen to not be showing up.
Exactly.
On the contrary, fantastic stuff. God, you've touched on so many wonderful things there. Let's speak about other clients, and you've dealt with thousands over the last 5 years. You've talked about one of the issues, one of the challenges currently is this loneliness and social connection that's struggling right now. What did you how did you term it? A
Social recession. Our learning team has coined that. I'm not going to take ownership, but that there's just sort of a social recession happening now is a term that we're seeing and using.
What are some of the other challenges
Yeah.
that clients come to you and say, "Hey, we're experiencing this. Can you help?"
Yeah. So I think the first is high level. Like, does leadership at the highest level believe in growth? And sometimes, we'll have a point of contact, a people leader who really does believe in that, or like knows that, manager training in today's world is table stakes. Like every company, I don't know, if you're not running manager development, like it's surprising to some extent. Um,
Absolutely.
and doesn't need to be through elective, like this is internal, bringing people together for skill building retreats, some form of that. And so when like you can tell a challenge is, hey, like I'm scheduling these sessions or trying to start a program, but I'm getting a lot of internal pushback. Like people don't want to spend an hour every other week on this, or people
Mm.
aren't going to be on camera, or I'm only going to get 7 people in the room. So getting like buy-in, kind of if there is a culture clash or
Mm.
a lack of support from leadership or other managers or even the influencers that I talked about, that is hard. Like it is hard to stand up a program and get engagement when you're kind of like pushing against the grain. And so I think there are kind of influence strategies from within to really kind of spider this belief and get people bought in. That is really critical. Obviously, if there's no leadership buy-in, budget is probably not allocated for this, which is a challenge. And like we really try to support our just kind of our champions to be equipped with data and information to say like, let's put this in perspective. This is half of what one employee would cost, and like we're reaching hundreds of our employees.
Mm.
And so trying to really like create kind of a perspective to see the ROI on this spend.
Mm.
And then honestly, a big one that's a challenge is getting stuck in the weeds. Like I think a lot of people leaders and learning leaders, it is hard to pick. Like, do I want people to talk about accountability? Do we want to talk about delegation, talk about conflict management or difficult conversations or bias in
Mm.
hiring? There are so many topics that feel important. I mean, let alone like the thousands of skills that are under the AI umbrella right now that are changing rapidly.
Mm.
So people get stuck in the weeds. Like if I can't decide what we're going to do, then I'm not going to do anything at all. And I think that's where like we have really kind of over time as electives has grown, worked with companies in a more kind of consultative way of saying, we don't expect you to be a learning strategist and an HR leader. Like, let us kind of share best practices or help you to develop these learning plans. But it is hard to get out of the weeds sometimes. Like I feel like in the day-to-day, that might be the biggest challenge that I see is how do you actually pick what topics you want? Like if you're going to ask people to come together, deciding on the topic or the instructor, it's like too daunting, and you don't, if it flops, like you're kind of at stake. So that is a challenge.
I imagine there's a number of different approaches and reasons for people coming to you, like people and culture leaders, HR leaders who have a budget. So they've got the budget, and it's like, right, we as a company believe in training and education. Go and buy us some tools, resources, workshops, whatever it is. Find some companies, they come to you. There's that, as you just emphasized, like, okay, so I've got money to have 3 of your electives over a week. It's mental health awareness month.
Yes.
But I imagine there's also people that are like, okay, we have this specific issue at work. Who do you have that can teach us on this topic? In other words, I mean, great, you talked about some of the challenges. What about some of those topics? We've got delegation. We've got, what over time have you noticed some of the main, if you can even give me a top 3 of topics that people want their company to be taught on?
Yeah. So for individual learning and like kind of individual skills, communication comes up a lot. And it's like, this is an evergreen topic. This isn't going away. How do you communicate your ideas clearly in a way where people believe you and they listen to you and like you're credible, and there's so many variations on that. Like, how can you use AI to support you in presentations? How do you use AI to, be more productive in written communication? I mean, there's a million things, but communication is kind of an evergreen, like more individual tactical skill that folks are always talking about. And that is obviously a driver for efficiency, stakeholder management, sales, et cetera. Same with manager training. Like leadership development has probably become kind of our bread and butter, where folks are looking for more built out off the shelf programs of like, we have this many new leaders or, this many cohorts. Here are our leadership competencies. Here are our company values. We need a program that really reflects that. And then we design those programs. And then AI, like AI integration, AI readiness is, change is faster now than ever. And those skills, like you need experts. An HR leader, a people leader is not an expert in AI. You need the top professors at MIT. You need these people that we are bringing in from consulting firms who are the AI specialists, et cetera, to be the instructors, to bring people up to speed. And again, like that content is just changing in real time. So what was a class 4 months ago, that content has changed since then. So those are 3 big ones, I would say. And then I will add, Mark, like this has been, we're working with some pretty enormous household names right now on huge shifts in company culture initiatives. So like the DEI landscape we know is changing. The language that we're using for inclusive culture is rapidly changing. Those initiatives are still important. Like there are companies where thousands and thousands of employees are in these ERG groups and have done a huge amount of work, but some of those operations and content needs to shift. And so we're supporting pretty huge companies right now through those transitions so that inclusive culture can still remain and be, compliant and kind of in touch with our modern context. So that was more than you asked for, but those are kind of hot topics right now that we're seeing in electives.
Exactly what I asked for. Thank you, Maggie. Brilliant. AI. One evergreen topic that I'm thinking of as you're saying that is navigating change.
Totally.
it's the same principles, isn't it? But
Yeah.
this is just a different type of change, a very big one, I might add. And I think part of helping people with the fear now is a huge topic. I know that I'm encountering with my clients that I'm coaching is just even individuals that I'm doing one-on-one while we're going through a program of effective communication, delegating, time management, all those standard topics and challenges. What's underneath is really, I'm scared I'm not going to have a job. What's going on? And depending on the company and the industry, that's coming up a lot of just dealing with that change, navigating that change. And I know Electives offers a lot of different experts on the matter. So if you're watching now, in fact, I'm going to take this opportunity just before I forget to remind folks everything we're talking about is available to you. Scan that QR code and check out Electives. Look at their library of workshops, the wonderful facilitators and teachers that they have. And also you'll just get a sense of what an awesome culture Electives is, and brilliant people that are running it, like you, Maggie.
Wow.
I'll bring that up one more time at the end. So I want to wrap up. I want to get you back into your day over there in Aspen. If you could and there's so many, you've already touched on a few, so forgive me if this is putting you on the spot a little bit, but I always like to give our audience 3 actionable takeaways. So I'll let you decide whether it's a takeaway for company leader, a takeaway for someone in HR or learning and development, or even just the individual, maybe the manager at work who runs a number of meetings weekly, daily, even, how to make them more impactful. What are 3 ways that you can think of that can help people enhance the learning experience at work?
Yeah. The first thing I would say is that it's okay to just try something out. Like, you don't have to have an entire year-long strategy or plan to bring people together in a meaningful way. Like, bringing them together and say, hey, we're piloting just 2 sessions together for like these lunch and learns, and we want your feedback. It's like a really easy, light way to try something and like get something rolling maybe before you're ready to socialize or roll out a year-long approach. And so it is just a way to kind of activate and get things started. So that is something that I think is a beautiful just reminder. Like, we don't have to boil the ocean before we, try something out that we know is important. And then another thing to enhance enjoyment at work, I mean, all of the research says like managers and leaders are the kind of number 1 indicator for employee happiness and satisfaction. And so if folks are working with managers that are not effective, it has an immense trickle down effect. So there are a lot of ways out there. Obviously, I think Electives is incredible, but develop your managers. Like, there are really concrete skills and moves that leaders can make every day in interactions with their direct reports, or not, just for the team as a whole, that do really matter and that are like proven to be effective. And so it feels worthwhile, in our opinion, to teach them those skills. So I would just say, like, doubling down on managers, especially when they're kind of in this sweet spot of learning that is maybe right before they get promoted or early on in their leadership journey. That's the second thing. I don't know, the third thing, like, don't be afraid to have fun with your team. Some of the like clearest memories we have is when I insisted that we test out. We have a magician in the library for like fun events, and I forced our leadership team to let him come to 15 minutes of our leadership meeting, because I was like, we need to test out Dan Chan, the Magic Man. And he ended up staying for 45 minutes. And like, we were all just like in awe, couldn't believe what was happening, so engaged. We like talked about it for months afterwards. And I still remember like these magic tricks that he had on Zoom that were insane. And it was like fun, and it was just so worthwhile. And I feel like a lot of that is lost in today's world. Or so don't be afraid to bring people together to just connect as human beings and smile. And yeah, I think it pays off and is just a great thing to do in general.
I couldn't have asked for a better 3 things, especially number 3. Thank you, Maggie. It's like have I sent you the notes of my new keynote about work enjoyment?
Oh.
Play. It's like you read it front to back, because play, shared experiences.
Totally.
I have a framework that talks about, first and foremost, the individual, self-awareness. It's crucial. That's the foundation. Because sometimes we're at work expecting our leaders to create a culture of accountability and enjoyment and work experiences and learning experiences that are fun and impactful. But what do we bring to the table? Are we a good teammate? Some people aren't aware of their blind spots and don't realize that they're actually they don't play in the sandpit very well with others. So then turning that focus outwards onto, all right, now I have a good sense of self and self-awareness and managing my ego. Mm-hmm. Let me focus on building relationships and caring for the people around me. So giving to others, forming that trusting relationships is enjoyable, and we get results, and we're a better team. And when we are more enjoyable to work with, other people enjoy it. It rubs off. And then we've got the we, so the collective, which I think is exactly what Electives does a brilliant job of, creating shared experiences now with these individuals that create belonging, identity through all these things, challenge, figuring things out together, and play, like even just because that can be uncomfortable. Like being silly, right? Bringing your inner child to the table. Why does it always have to be so serious? Yes, we got to perform. We're a business, got to make money. Jobs are on the line, yada, yada, yada. But this is your life. We spend over a third of our life in this environment. Make it fun. Bring a magician in.
Mark, we have a class. I was just on a meeting with her where our instructor, in the middle of the session, there's a push-up competition. And people are like angling their cameras down to the floor and dying of laughter. And they talk about it for months afterwards. So +1 to that.
Thank you. There you go. Another tip. You've got thousands of them. So once again, go visit Electives, folks. QR code, or just go to electives.io. Maggie, is there anything people should know when reaching out to Electives?
No, also just feel free to reach out directly, Maggie at electives.io. We have a webinar coming up at the end of February on the kind of future of work in 2026 and 4 critical learning trends that we're seeing in the space. We've had more people sign up for this webinar than like any other event that we've put on. So I think the topics are really compelling. Feel free to ping me or message me on LinkedIn, and I'll send you the registration link. But excited for what's to come, Mark. I'm so grateful for you and so happy to be in this work with you. I hope there were some helpful tidbits here that folks pulled away on LinkedIn.
Certainly, more than we could have asked for. Maggie, that's why you're here. Brilliant. Love working with you and the folks over at Electives. Thanks for giving us your time and sharing your wisdom. You have so much of it. And you are just, in general, just a light of energy and optimism. And it's great to just be on camera with you. Maggie, thanks again. Go get them. And I'm going to put up some more stuff for people to sign up for. I didn't know about that webinar. I love it. I'll be there.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, Maggie. Go save the world like you do so well. Thanks for joining.
Okay, I'm clicking leave.
I'll kick you out. Ready?
Perfect.
3,
yes.
2. She's gone. Maggie Goldstein. What a joy, and very important topic, and lots of tidbits from her about ways we can enhance our work experiences, our learning experiences, which is so important. She talked about growth mindset, had a lot of different ways from a leadership standpoint all the way down to individual contributors, employees in general that aren't in leadership positions, how we can pull together and different ways to make our learning experiences more enjoyable. What a great guest. Well, that was number 6. Stay tuned for more. Thanks for joining us again, folks. Turn up to these lives because you can comment, you can ask questions. That's the beauty of this. If you haven't shown up, you're probably watching the recording right now. So thanks for joining us, whatever format you have, and I'll see you at the next one. Bye for now.